Welcome to This Works Marketing, where 3 decades of proven experience has launched products, built brands, and generated profits. These are the stories behind the businesses that have been built. All right, so how's everybody doing today? This is This Works Marketing. My name is Ken Carey. I'm a direct sales expert for the last 30 years, working with big companies, small companies, and Fortune 500 brands, generating over $6 billion in sales for our clients. And today, just before Father's Day, we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've learned through our fathers and some things that we've learned in business and how that's affected us personally. And with me today is Mick Koontz. And Mick is the Chief Operating Officer at Script to Screen. And Mick, we've had a very interesting similarity between you and I, where we're talking about, I'm just going to talk specifically about a gentleman named Bill Mitchell. And unfortunately, we lost Bill in February of this year. And Bill was my father-in-law, and he was extremely important in my life, not only in terms of business, but personally, because I lost my father when I was 18, and I never had that father figure to kind of teach me the trials and tribulations of life, really. And luckily, when I met my wife of today, Barbie,
first wife, right?
Yeah, first and only. Yes, exactly. I was lucky because I won. I always say I won the in-law lottery, and I have a fantastic mother-in-law and father-in-law, and my father-in-law taught me so much. And we're going to get into a little bit of the things that he taught me, and I think what Mick and I want people to take away is that when you have someone impactful in your life that affects you on a personal basis, professional basis, and so many other ways, and it's always nice to reminisce or to thank that person. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I learned with Bill and how he's helped me personally and professionally, and I'm sure you have your own stories and anecdotes the same way. So,
you know what, we have different things we get from our fathers. And
right.
First of all, Father's Day is a special day for me. I have a brand new granddaughter, and I get to watch my son-in-law learn to be a father for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole special thing, and you want to tell them so much ahead of time before things go. And passing on a father's wisdom is something that we all find that we can cherish if it's great wisdom and if it's done in love, to speak of. And
right.
And it's a neat opportunity to see that whole thing start there from the beginning, so you can start over.
Do you find yourself saying, "Hey, you oughta," and then you pull back?
So my daughter,
Or did
my
she
granddaughter's 4 months old, so there's really not a lot of fathering to do except be patient.
Right. Or does your daughter slap your hand and say, "Ah"?
And so far I'm still allowed to be a granddad,
Okay,
so
that's
I
good.
can do that.
That's good. So one of the things that I'd like to share is I was on a trip just recently with my family in Italy, and I had about 12 hours on an airplane on coming back, and I wrote down. I was thinking about writing. This would be our 31st year in business, and thinking about the 31 things that I've learned in business, and 31 things that I've learned in direct response business, and how I could share that value with other people, especially people who have products and brands that we work with. And I think it's good information for a lot of people. But as I started writing it, I started thinking about a lot of the things I was writing were really just drips from my father-in-law.
Yeah.
And like, for example, one of the things that my father-in-law always told me, and it stuck with me, and it's really how you and I and Barbie and the team here at Script to Screen run the business, is that he always said fair and equitable is always fair and equitable. And that's made such an impact on me, because when we do our contracts and deals with the people that we do business with, that's something is just important. And I think that it has a lot to do with the tenure we have with clients, because we've been fair and equitable. We're just trying to do what's right for us and right for them, and it reflects, and it comes back with people that move on from one position to another company, give us a call, or long-term relationships we have with current businesses. So that one just hit me right. It was like the first one that came out of my brain was fair and equitable is always fair and equitable, and I learned that from my father-in-law, and it's just made a big difference as how we run our business, and not only how we run our business, it's affected me in how I run my life, my personal life.
Yep. Bill was a great mentor because Bill had an infectious enthusiasm that he just wanted to share with everybody.
Right.
But in that, he liked to condense truisms into short sayings, and he collected them.
Mm-hmm.
I have listed like 80 of them.
And I have
to
a whole
speak of.
computer full of them.
He just has so many of them to speak of that you go, I know I have that now. It's now mine. It came from him.
Right.
But it's mine now.
Actually, you actually said that a couple times. I feel when I talk, I feel like I'm Bill talking.
Yeah, exactly.
It's coming out of me.
And when you talk about our relationships with our clients, our yeses are yeses and our noes are noes. And the reason that they are is we want to get to the place where let's just agree because we want to be direct.
Right.
Or in direct response. But in addition, more importantly than that, is we want to have a relationship that one of Bill's great statements here that he lived by was the statement that said, if honesty is an impediment to have a relationship, then you have no relationship.
Right.
And that is totally how we have to deal in life, right?
Right.
So
not in life and in business and
every that's part of the integrity bill
Right.
that we all have.
Right.
So what I really like, there's so many things that he taught. One of the ways that we've learned a long time is we've had a number of people that have come into our lives that have worked with us and for us, and we have a collection of people that hang around because they've enjoyed the relationship, and that stems from many of those values that Bill helped strengthen and grow in our business. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that I would ever wanted to be a son-in-law to Bill. That would have been tough because he's pretty demanding as a person.
Yeah.
But in terms of just a wisdom teacher, he
Mm-hmm.
was fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, just fabulous.
Yeah. Another thing that I was writing down, the 31 things that I learned in business was that, and I take this and I implement it into when part of what we do in our business is we have a strategy and we have a very specific cadence of what we do when we create a very compelling story and a message about a product or service, and how you put that into compelling selling message is very tactical, very strategic, and how you do it to be successful.
Very much so.
And one of the things that always hit me, that Bill told me that I share with clients is that, and as a matter of fact, I used it this morning on a client today. We have a client in London, and the saying he always said is, if you build a house that you like, the consumer will recognize it and let you keep it. Now, I put my own little spin on that, and I've said many times, if you build a show that you like, that's great, you like it, but the consumer may not like it, and they may let you keep the product you're trying to sell. So I just tweaked it from house to product because Bill was a home builder. And as a matter of fact, you were a home builder with Bill.
We have some of those houses we liked.
Yeah. That nobody bought or took a long time for people to buy?
Nobody bought.
But we were talking about this show that's going to be launching here in the next couple of weeks, and the client was saying, I think this is going to be really good. I really like the way this sounds, and I think we should say it this because this is how I use the product, and this is how the people I know use the product. And I said, wait a minute, Rob. I said, I think it's great that you like it that way, but you have to think in the mind of the consumer.
Yeah.
The consumer doesn't care what you think. The market will always be the market, and the market's always right. Whether you like it, whether you like it or not, the market's always right. So I, in a nice way, I said, now think about what you're saying. That's great that you like that, but remember, you're not the one buying it. You're the one selling it. And he stopped and said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I think there's things to consider with what I said, and I said I agree, but don't make the whole message about that. And we agreed to agree on some things, but it was that point where I can use that phrase. If you build a show that you like, the consumer will recognize it and let you keep the product you're trying to sell, because when you're trying to sell, you don't want to keep product, you want to sell product. And it worked out that he's like, you know what, that really makes sense. Let me back away. I'm not trying to do this. And he just said it through a passion of what he had about the product. And I understand where it comes from.
Right.
But in selling, you have to be really, really, really acute to what the consumer wants and manage your message around to solve their problems and to their pain points with your product. So that was just one I happened to use today.
Well, here's a lifetime of them. Some of them we would even use as bloody nose theory, which we take a new employee that said, this person has a lot of potential, but they don't know much. We said, well, let's go find out how much they know, and let's just go throw them in the pool and see if they swim. And the idea was you would learn so much more from the real experiences of being out there in life than you would if you just thought about it and waited until they're ready. And much like the 31 years we've got to at this point in time is we had some bloody noses pretty early in this point in time, and we've learned from it now to speak of. And those life lessons have lasted for 31 years.
31, but you know, and this isn't a Billism, but it's a phrase that he said all the time. He says, you know, if you get a bloody nose and it's something didn't go your way or didn't work, you know, now it's up to you to do what it's up to you to make the change that won't make that won't happen again. Because if you say, if you fool me once, shame on you. If you fool me twice, shame on me. You know, if you make the mistake once, shame on you. If you make the mistake twice, shame on me. Right?
He studied thought anyway, and he would he had a number of thoughts because he was probably the most strong-willed person that I knew. But among those things, though, they were always delivered in love, delivered in confrontation frequently, but always it needed to be, let's get my emotion out of it. Let's do what's right. Let's do what the best thing we possibly can for what we promised. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you guys, between you and Barbie, you guys were always don't stand for anything less than that. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Another one that comes to mind, and when we're involved in projects, myself and Barbie, we're high-level strategic, and execution-wise, we get deep in there with the teams. But at a certain point, you know, we're leading a team, and I think that's what's helped us be successful for the many years that we have, is that we're good team leaders, and we get in and get our hands dirty and our knees dirty, but you gotta lead the team. And one of the things that he used to say all the time was, you can't expect what you don't inspect.
Really.
And if you really break that down, it's like you have to communicate to your team and the people that you're working with what you want. Now, they may hear you, but do they really understand everything? And the only way you can really be confident that they understand that is that you inspect what you're expecting from them. So if you don't inspect what the team is doing, you can't expect to have the result that you want in your mind if you don't do that.
For everybody that's a father, you know this with your kids. If you just let your kids go, you tell them and you never ever go back and check on them, you're host, right? You're host. So part of, it changed a little bit, but one of the things that always comes back to me is Bill used to always just sum it up, and he would say that in life you have two choices and only two. Either endure the deprivations of failure or you adjust to the sacrifices of success. Which do you choose? And you go, okay, I get it. Well, you know, so part of being in a business that we have to deal with people as a service, we have to go for success. We can't strive for anything less than success.
Right.
We can't phone it in any day. We have to do what a good father would do, which is that I am going to be responsible, or at least I'm going to encourage, and I'm going to check up and inspect what my kids are doing right now.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that I think is unique about scripted screening, what we do with our clients and our business and our shows and the things that we do to help our clients is that, at the end of the day, yes, we're making advertising that is to sell a product or a service that a client has hired us to do that. But at the same time, we are in the people management business at the same time. So these little tidbits of information really help in the management of the people. They get to help the team do what we want to do, which is to make the best possible product to the client that has hired us to do something at the best, highest quality service, at the highest quality of direct response principles that's gonna lead to the results that they expect. And these little bits of wisdom they come on over here to personal relationships. They come over here to business relationships. They come over here to how you message things. So there's just so many ways to take these little nuggets of information that we learned and we've been taken through osmosis through the people that we care about.
One of the other things he said, when sometimes we get into places where it just seems like things are a little tougher and you just got to grit through them, it was clear that he would try to release us from clinching by telling us, when you are having a service, there are 3 things you need to consider. Right?
Yep.
You need to consider price, you need to consider speed, and you need to consider quality. But you can only have 2. So when you have to figure out what you're going to sacrifice, you have to just keep that centric. And again, that's another thing he told us, which is so clear when we have these, when we just have these issues of whether there's time constraints and there are things that are being asked for that just don't happen. We just have to come back and say, this is your choice.
Right.
And I'll let the client make those choices.
Right. Funny you'd say that. That happened today. I didn't use the exact same quote, but I said the same thing. We have a head spinning deadline coming up on this product, and we want to get a lot of things done. And the reality is, listen, we can spend more money to make this happen. We can make it happen faster, and maybe quality is gonna suffer because you can't make things happen faster than it takes to make them happen.
Yeah, you can't just wish it. Yeah.
Right. So off that, I remember specifically, Bill would say to me about, and I'm gonna find it exactly. Oh, he says, I remember that. Let's see. A man isn't made by their circumstances, but the circumstances reveal the man. Something to that effect. He always talked about that, and I take that and I break that down into the people that we do business with. And if you're dealing with somebody and you're thinking that the circumstances make the man, and if things are a little awkward or whatever, the circumstances made that person, that's not really it. You're dealing with that the circumstances just exposed who that person is.
That's exactly
And if you look at through that lens, I can tell you, I would say 100% of the time, when things would get a little wonky and somebody would get a little crazy or unhappy, it was really, deep down, they were that person. The circumstances just revealed it.
Evidence is everywhere we go. We do all the time.
That's such a great piece of advice that I would just outside, just for life for people, recognize that circumstances don't make a person, they reveal the person.
And again, when we talk about these things are things you learned from a father-in-law that you didn't even see coming. You didn't even know when you're growing up that this was going to be something that would happen to you. One of the things that moving back to Father's Day just a tad, is when we have a relationship, when we're small, they're more fathers and they're more, perhaps mentors, but mostly they're probably people just providing and trying to protect us and keep us in place. And as we get older, we're lucky enough to have a relationship with them. We get an opportunity to actually hear really words that affected them and they're passed on. And part of what we've done in this business that we have is we try to take all of these learnings to speak of and say some people aren't ready for the nuances of that stuff yet, so just trust us.
Right.
And as we get deeper and deeper with some of these clients, we start explaining what we did, and they go, oh, that's why. Oh, that's why.
Right.
And the real specialness again is first to salute all those fathers out there right now to speak of that are trying to figure out how they can be impactful for their kids. Is we know that there are character issues that we want them to go to, and we all hope to try to identify those characters we want to. We have, as a corporate culture, we have characters we have, and Ken touched on a few already. But the things that are probably most endearing are when we're all done, we all want to know that we gave our best and we did what we could most, and we hope to have given something and made a difference in the time we were making footsteps, and I'm not saying that well, with people that are in this, your kids or our clients. And I just,
You know where you're going with that?
yeah, no, I don't know where I'm going with that.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, it was interesting when we were thinking about this topic for our Facebook Live, and though it's not really driven specifically about business, but it is about business, it is about life, and isn't really everything that way. Business is life, and life is business, and family, and all that. It all kind of converges together. So I guess in closing, and I'd like to just say that, you know, I feel so lucky and I feel so honored that I can feel myself talking and saying the words my father-in-law laid on me. And it's totally subconscious. As a matter of fact, and you even said that a couple of times, that you just talk like Bill. It just comes out like him, and I just feel so lucky. So I feel, and not having that ability to say those things anymore. I could say them in my prayers and my dreams and all that kind of stuff, but not having that ability to say that anymore. I would say that when you have that opportunity with that your father, that loved one that made such an impact in your life, just stop the moment and say what you feel, and I can tell you that I was blessed to have the opportunity to say everything I wanted to say to my father-in-law before I lost him. But had I not had that opportunity, I think one of the worst things that I'd be living with was regret, and there's nothing worse than regret. So I would just encourage anyone to not
honor your father.
Honor your father. Say what you want to say. Don't have that regret, and take what you learn and spread the knowledge that you have gotten, and because the knowledge that you've gotten is a gift, and a gift is only worth anything if you can keep giving it, right? So anyways, I hope everybody has a good Father's Day with your family coming up, and thank you for letting us just kind of rant about somebody who's really important in our lives, Bill Mitchell, and how it's made how it has made an effect on us personally, and how it definitely has made an effect on the 31 years of success we've had with Scripted Screening, and how we're going to carry that on into the next 30 years of the company, and how we grow as a company, and the decisions that we make. The decisions that we make when we move forward on a company is, one of the things that Bill was both to Mick and I was that mentor, that person that we could bounce an idea off, and what do you think? And we didn't always agree, but I could say that, there's that echo over here and over here talking to us about what that is, and we cherish that. So, take those opportunities to cherish them, and take the opportunity to say thank you, and you love your father, and you love that person, and take it into your business and your life, and cherish it.
I love, at the end of Bill's life, he started a company called Up Your Aspirations.
Yeah.
And his quote was, "You are good where you are, but you're too good to stay there." And that's I think our wish for all of you out there now. Be a great father. Happy Father's Day.
I'm not even going to touch that. That was good. Thank you. See you all next time.
Bye.
Welcome to This Works Marketing, where 3 decades of proven experience has launched products, built brands, and generated profits. These are the stories behind the businesses that have been built.